Hello, everyone. This is Ron Bush with Ron Bush Consulting, and you're listening to the Information Playground. Ron Bush Consulting is a company that's um, helps with cybersecurity. We consult with companies that want to stay safe on the web and want to keep their employees and their clients safe. If you're interested in the services we offer, check us out, ronbushconsulting.com. Also, if you're interested in the information that we're presenting or anything regarding the program, uh, shoot me an email, ron@ronbushconsulting.com. Now, those of you that are listening to us on FM radio, you're listening to us on WVLP. That's 103.1 FM if you're in Valparaiso, Indiana. If you'd like to stream us from there, we're on Monday mornings at 8 a.m. and Friday afternoons at 1 p.m. You can stream us from wvlp.org, and I encourage you to check out their website. They're a great community radio station. They do a lot in the community, and you can be a part of that. If you prefer to listen to us on demand, you can find us on podcasts, just about any of them, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and the rest of them. Or you can find us on YouTube, both under the channel names The Information Playground. So thank you for being with us today, and I hope you enjoy the program. My guest is an old friend of mine, Richard Epps. Dick, are you there?
I'm here.
Great to see you.
Oh, it's great to see you.
Tell the folks a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been around for a while. Grew up in the Midwest and have been part of different ministries that I have had the opportunity to serve in, Youth for Christ and Moody Bible Institute, and more recently in doing some coaching for other ministries. And so just lessons learned along the way is what I do these days. And it's a nice place to be because basically there's not a lot of pressure. It's more of an opportunity to share insights and examples and possibilities. And then if whoever I'm talking to doesn't want to do it, I guess that's up to them.
There you go. There you go.
So that's the difference between coaching and consulting. I call what I do coaching because I knew what I expected of a consultant, and I really don't think that's what I want to do these days.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what you're doing. What's it called? How did you get into it? And explain it to us.
Yeah. Well, it has to go back a ways. Like I said, I grew up and went to Moody Bible Institute for school. And then I did that to go into the ministry called Youth for Christ. And YFC is now 76 years old, been around for that many years. The first full-time employee was Billy Graham. And so it has that kind of a history. For those who don't know what it is, that helps to identify it quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And early on, he spun off of that and did Billy Graham Evangelism Association. But YFC has gone on, and it's about 200 chapters across the United States and 100 and some nations around the world. So it's still a going, moving organization. But quite a few years, and I was over 25 years with YFC in various roles. And did a lot of involvement on a local level with kids, and then started working more and more with staff. And that led to involvement on the national level. And I did that for some years, and still wasn't that old, actually. And so I started looking for another opportunity to serve in the time I had left. And Moody had been a major part of my background. And so I went on the alumni board and got involved there for a while. And then I had the opportunity to serve there for 16 years and retired about 15 years ago. So the last 15 years, then I in effect, took what I'd learned through YFC and what I learned at Moody and started using it for helping others who are looking to really fulfill what God has called them to do. And so I call it ministry management coaching. And that's the now I'm associated with a consulting organization called Next out of Kalamazoo. Next, and I'll give you more information on that later. But I'm still basically my 15 years of ministry in this area have been ministry management coaching. Still
So,
involved with, right now I'm involved with about 4 different organizations. I re-up about every 6 months just to make sure I don't overstay, I've delivered what I have, and often re-up. And one organization I've been re-upping with for the last 10 years. So it's ongoing, but I can wrap up along the way as well.
so what kind of organizations do you look for, um, and how do you get started? What brings it about?
Yeah, good question. Well, let me back up and talk a little bit more about ministry management coaching. I learned a lesson early on when I came to Moody. It's where you put your emphasis on those 3 words. I've already talked about the difference between coaching and consulting. So coaching is something where I tell people about consultants rather than, like, I'll tell them about Ron Bush, and if you need help, he's the guy to go to, that kind of a deal. But the ministry management, it's the concept of that management is ministry. It's not just a means to ministry. So it's the ministry of management, if you put the before ministry, of management, and yet it's also the ministry of the management of ministries. So it's a little semantic thing, but the major issue for me that keeps me going is the fact that it's not just a means to get something done, to raise funds or to hire staff or to do what we do, but it is in effect a ministry in and of itself. I learned that lesson when I first came to Moody, and I was alumni, as I said, and then about 5 years in, the director of development, we called it stewardship, at Moody was leaving. And I was asked, do you want to consider that? And I said, yeah, you got to be kidding. I mean, I raised money in Youth for Christ, but we're talking about millions and millions of dollars that have to be raised for Moody to do what they do, with tuition paid education and commercial free radio and no debt and all the issues that Moody is known for. I said, I don't know about this. And so I said, sure, I'll talk about it. And a man named Marvin Beckman was our general counsel, and you remember him. We sat down and we talked it through and pretty much discovered the fact of what they were looking for is somebody to manage a team to get the job done. And that's more of who I am. And I saw that. And so I accepted the position. But as we were wrapping up, I said, I do have one question. He asked if I had any questions. And I said, yeah, why do we call it stewardship instead of advancement or development or something like that? And he said, and without a blink, he said, because we see it as ministry, not just a means to ministry. And I thought, wow, is that liberating? Mm-hmm. I mean, the whole concept of fundraising, most people that know anything about organizations, not-for-profit organizations, know fundraising is not something that everybody is standing in line to do. And the tenure of most development people is 18 months or something along that line. It's very, very brief. But when you get the concept that it's a ministry to those who want to support the mission called Moody, then it was so liberating to do it. And I wasn't picking pockets. I wasn't trying to be slick. I wasn't trying to figure out how to get in the back door with their bank account. It was just an opportunity to reach out and share with them what the Moody ministry was all about and invite them to be part of it. And wow, it was freeing. It was a great thing. So that's kind of that's my backdrop of what I do even now. I mean, that's my, when I'm sitting across the table from somebody and they're asking about my help, if I could help them, that's one I pound the table over. You've got to get this straight. If you don't have that straight, then I'm probably not the person to talk to, because you can't just do it through technique or slick presentations.
Regardless whether we're talking ministry or we're talking business, nobody likes having their arm twisted. Nobody likes being manipulated.
That's right. Yeah.
And what
And they spot it right away. Everybody, we're so sophisticated. We know what's happening, you know, with that next thing in the mail, or that pitch, or the call, or the whatever. We're pretty sophisticated.
so
So what do I do? Who
yeah.
am I doing it with? Well, with that in mind, the idea that I learned through my pretty much what I did in Youth for Christ in most of my years there was manage people, building teams. I'm a team developer. You know, that's what I do. And our team happened to be Let's Reach Kids for Jesus. You know, and so that was what we did. Or when I moved into the national organization, I was helping the local director or their staff or their board. How do we do this? And so, but you put together the people side of it. And so it was a matter of developing people. And in that process, you have people, and then you have, what are they going to do? So the strategic planning process kicked in, and I got involved with different kinds of planning processes. And then, of course, right people with a plan leads to how are you going to fund it? And so those are the three elements. So as I finished up at Moody and I started ministry management coaching, I was a Christian ed major in my background and education in my doctoral work and things like this. So it's always a model of some kind. And so I developed a pyramid that it represents those three elements of ministry management. And it's the right people, rightly resourced, doing the right things. So it's the right people, the right plan, and the right provision. To make it alliterated, it's people, plans, and provision. And so I put that into a pyramid structure. And so when I sit down with somebody calls and says, hey, I hear that you raise money at Moody. Well, we have a money problem. Can you come and help us? Well, my next step is to usually sit down with them or do something on the phone or through Zoom or whatever. And my pyramid has helped me present it. It's kind of the diagnostic that I put together. And so I work on that and then walk them through it and help them understand what I can do to help coach them in this process. This isn't just for ministry, as you've already pointed out, in business, it's still the same three elements, right? It's having the right people with a strategic plan and rightly resourced, either in sales or in venture capital or whatever it takes. So the same three are in effect. But with the ministry side, I take it and here's my pyramid. So it's something along this line. I have smaller versions. I have a huge version if I'm doing a presentation. But the three sides of it, it's a three-sided pyramid. Hold it up where I can get it. And one side represents people over here. This side represents plans. And this side represents provision or resourcing. And when you have them all together like this, it makes a pyramid. And a pyramid is strong as an architectural tool. And so is, this represents your organization that I'm, the person I'm talking to. And the three faces then are what we can start talking about. All three are in play and they pretty much represent anything we want to talk about. There is a sequencing of right people with the right plan, rightly resourced, in that money follows, it doesn't lead. That would be in sales, of course, as well. Money follows, it doesn't lead. So we usually, once again, the phone rings and we have a money problem. The diagnostic is the opportunity to sit down with Ron Bush and say, okay, let's talk it through. Okay, let's talk about you. Let's talk about where you are and what you're about. Let's talk about your team, who are the key people. And then what is your plan? What is your purpose, objective, and goals? You know, so where are you? So that face represents that. And this is on a very 30,000 feet level, you know, of general discussion. I had a call with my friend with Next the other day, and basically they're in a position where they really think they have a money issue or an ongoing basis. But it's pretty clear right away that they have a lot to talk about as far as their people and their plan before they can talk about their resourcing. So that sequence usually goes in that direction, and there's a good reason for that. In that, if you think about your donations to anybody or anything, people give to people. That's the highest motivation. Then they give to projects or plans, and thirdly, they give to a program that is doing something that they believe in. And the program might bring them to the table, but eventually, you know, it really depends on who's leading it, who are they talking to, who's representing. That's why presidents, CEOs sign the letter. They probably didn't write the letter, but they signed the letter because people are projecting who is in charge of this, who's the leader. And then what are they trying to do? You know, what is their project? Does it have, is it a make a difference issue? And then thirdly, they say, and what are they doing Monday through Friday or, you know, on an ongoing basis? That's the program. So all three are important, but you walk through that process of why money follows, it doesn't lead. Right people with the right plan. So anyway.
So let's talk for a moment. When we look at popular commercials and campaigns that we see, the Red Cross, Easter seals, which I haven't seen anything on Easter seals in a number of years, March of Dimes. When we see these things, they're not appealing to a particular person, or are they? Jude, St. Jude, the hospital that cares for kids. So is that a people, a program, or a project?
That's a good point. I would say that's primarily, just as off the top, I don't know who runs it, so it's not a matter of a leader. If I were going to give $100, I would not be worried about that. If I was going to give $1 million, I'd be very worried about that. So it's probably, I would say that it is the ongoing element that draws the person to it. And then when you see an ad on TV, it's about something specific that you could do to make a difference. And if you go big enough in your giving, it depends on who's on the board and who's the CEO. Because everybody is becoming gun shy of being pitched on something and then finding out that it's not going where they thought it was because of something else.
Right. Yeah, well, in St. Jude, it's not St. Jude, it's Jude's
Children's Hospital.
Children's Hospitals. Thank you. It was started by Danny Thomas, and Marlo Thomas, his daughter's been the spokesperson for it ever since. Now, who runs it? I have no idea either.
Yeah.
But in all of the commercials that I see, whether it's them or it's the Shriners Hospital, it's always the kids that are who you're giving to. It's the people in the commercials.
Yeah, well, or Marlo, you know, that's why you say a spokesperson. So you have someone that people want to identify with and feel good about. And so whether it's, you know, who's the CEO or who makes me feel comfortable with it, you know, it's still, that's still the issue, you know, that there's a people connection that's highly relational. And then sometimes it's, let's build a building, or let's build a new hospital, or for ministries, let's build a church. You know, campaigns have all kinds of, but those are more the project ideas. But that's one face of the pyramid. Back to before you get there, before you get to the money, you still have to back it up and say who has the vision. Plans might come first, and then you bring the leader into it, or the leader might have the visionary. We both were part of something where you had a very highly charismatic leader with a great vision, and that's what people were drawn to, almost regardless of what he said. What is it? What should we do? How can we help? And so when you have that, then you have to organize it and make it work. So back to the pyramid idea. The other thing I would say about this when I'm sitting over coffee is, as you look at the concept of the pyramid, there's two other elements. One is that their three faces touch each other. The people and the plan and the money always, they touch each other. That's true in an organization too. And what makes a pyramid strong is tension. Tension between the three faces leaning against each other is why they're still standing in Egypt, I guess. I would guess that the tension between leaning in on each other and touching each other makes it strong. Well, I contend that that's what makes an organization strong too. Tension is not bad. Tension is good. Tension is what you respond to. So, the tension of funding is there because you've got a great visionary with a great plan, and so that's a good tension. Or if you have a good plan and you've done so much and you can do more, how much is enough? More. It's always more. And that creates a tension that makes an organization very, very strong when you identify and you don't resist the tension, but you embrace the tension and go for it. So that's another key part of the concept of the pyramid. And the final one that I lay out is on a pyramid, it's all built on a base. So to keep my alliteration going with the right people, the plan and the provision, it's the platform. What are you building your platform? What are you building your pyramid on? Mm-hmm. And so we have to get to that when I'm sitting down with an organization and talking about it, because it doesn't matter. There's not one that's really good and one that's really bad. It's just, you better know what you're building on. And that comes back to the concept of the difference between ministries and 7-Eleven or ministries and anybody else. It's right people with the right plan, rightly resourced, fine. But what's your platform? And the platform for a ministry, I contend, have three elements to it. Faith, that's why we call it faith-based organizations. Faith, but then James, the book of James says, don't talk to me about your faith without works. So it's works and prayer. The prayer of the righteous man availeth much. So don't jump into your ministry plan, your ministry system, thinking that you're going to do it like some high-flying organizational, secular organization is going to do it. Because if you don't have your faith and your prayer and your action based on that, you're going to come up short, or you're getting pretty frustrated, or it's going to go away. So that's another key part of this platform. I don't think I've stretched too far to make this work. As far as representing what a ministry organization looks like with those three faces and that right platform. I think that those become the diagnostic element of sitting down with somebody and saying, okay, this is what we will do if we work together. And I will coach you in these three faces and the platform if needed, and help you find a good consultant that'll help you do a capital campaign or come up with a strategic plan or whatever. And that's Next Consulting does that. That's one reason I'm part of it, because I can feed into that system then. And my associate there is really good in these areas, and I can coach and he can do. He tells me he'll take my stuff and make it look pretty.
I really don't see it. There's you draw the distinction between sacred and secular organizations, and it's well said. But there are secular organizations that are run by Christians and
oh, yeah, absolutely.
Christians.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I see that big a distinction. For instance, in my own business, now I'm not going to be as outspoken as a Christian organization would be in furthering the cause of Christ, but I'm certainly not going to deny it. And when you start a business, there's an awful lot of faith involved. It's either faith in yourself or faith in a higher power. In
Yeah,
my case, it was faith in God that He would lead me. The works, once again, uh, you've got to be true to your platform. And I guarantee you, since this is my fourth business, um, there's a lot of work involved.
absolutely. And
And
I'm glad you're bringing that up because I want to make sure that I'm not being misunderstood. I'm not saying that a secular organization run by Christians has any problem. All I'm saying is know what you're doing. Know where you're going on this,
yeah,
and do it that way. I'll give you a good example of how I see this. There are some really good social action organizations, social works,
hmm
really great social works, distribution of food, medical needs, all those kinds, run by Christians. And basically it's a social work done by Christians. And those Christians are solid people, heart of gold, really called and committed, and no problem with that at all. But there are also organizations that are primarily focused on reaching into the neighborhoods and into the cities of the same groups of people, but their motivation is missional in a different way. It's a ministry concept that has a social conscience. The difference is you can see it pretty quickly, and there's good reasons to do it. One is funding. There are social works done by Christians that would not get the funding they're getting if they were a evangelical social conscience ministry in the same community. So all I'm saying is it's the diagnostic. And once you've got your diagnostic, now you're ready to build on your people plans and funding.
so I'm thinking about, we're recording this. I don't know if it's the middle or the end or the beginning of COVID-19 in this country, but I
I hope
pray
it's the end.
it's the end. Who knows? So I'm hearing all over the nation that there are a lot of nonprofits. Many of them have exhausted their resources. And of course, giving is down. Many people are out of work. It's the highest unemployment since the Great Depression of the 30s. Um, what advice do you have for them? And and just out of curiosity, I'm going to be asking you in a moment to let people know how they can get in touch with you if they have questions. What kind of an organization would you be able or willing to help or work with?
Uh, I'm open to a wide range of coaching
Mhm.
because the coaching is not the doing. And so I don't really have a strong a line where I would say I would never work with them unless it's immoral or something along that line.
Mhm.
But a good organization that is trying to my life goal. Let's jump to that, because one of the things I've talked to you about before is when I no longer had my job at YOC or Moody, and the last 15 years, I've developed a life job description. Okay. And a life job description helps guide me on what I do. Because those who are still earning most of their income from their jobs don't have the freedom that I have because I'm retired and I have income from other sources. So I had to identify what I'm doing. So I'm not spending 60%, 70%, 80% of my time earning my living doing what I'm doing.
Mhm.
So my life job description takes on the 7 or 8 other aspects of life: the physical, the mental, the social, the spiritual, the financial, the family, now vocational and recreational. So those 8 areas are my job. That's what I do. And the percent, you don't take your life and divide it by 8 and say, I give an eighth of myself to each of these lines. But when we're the breadwinner, when we're working, basically 50, 60, 70% of our time, either getting there, doing our job and getting back, is spent in that vocational track. So that's a much smaller track for me now, and rightfully so, because I'm not dependent on it. So as I take a look at how I function and what I do and who I want to help, that I go back to my life purpose. And my life purpose that I came up with long ago in my planning process, life planning process, is to help those who are committed to helping others. That's what I do. And so once anybody gets that idea, it really doesn't matter what they pay me. It doesn't matter, I'm basically, they got me. If I think, if they think I can help them and I think I can help them, then let's do it. We'll figure it out, the details along the way. So to answer your question, it's kind of a long ways around to answer it, but I'm open to discuss. But the gotcha on the whole thing is I'm committed to helping those who are wanting to help others. So the helping ministries, the helping organizations, it doesn't have to be evangelistically driven. I'm more inclined to that because that's who I am. That's my heart. That's my passion. But I can help. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Kinda?
I didn't know if you were done. So
Okay.
I'm going to take a few moments and identify who we are and what we're doing here, remind folks who they're listening to, and then we'll come back. And you didn't at the end tell people how to get in touch with you, but when we come back, I'll ask you to do that.
Okay.
So you're listening to Ron Bush and Dick Epps. I'm Ron Bush. The other guy with the beard's Dick Epps. Ron Bush, I own Ron Bush Consulting. We're a cybersecurity consultancy. We help businesses stay in business, and we limit liability as well as help people keep their data safe. Certainly, no one is hack-proof. The NSA gets hacked, FBI gets hacked, everybody gets hacked. But the idea is to make yourself and your business, your clients, your employees, make everything safer for all of them. So that's what we do. If you're interested in contacting us, I'm Ron at ronbushconsulting.com. That's my email. You can look up my website, ronbushconsulting.com. If you're listening to us on radio, you're listening to us on WVLP. It's a great community radio station, FM radio station, 103.1 if you're in Valparaiso, Indiana. If you're streaming from that radio station or listening to us on the dial, you're doing so either at Monday morning at 8 o'clock or at Friday afternoon at 1 p.m. If you'd like to catch us on demand, any of the podcasting platforms, Spotify, Google Podcast, Overbreak, Apple Podcast, we're on all of those under the Information Playground. And also on YouTube, if you've got time to sit and watch us. I've always been told that I had a face for radio, but if you'd like to watch it, you can catch us on YouTube under the Information Playground. So with that, Dick, how do folks, if they've got questions for you or they want to talk further, how do they reach you?
Well, let me give you two possibilities. One is, like I said, I'm now associated with an organization called NEXT, N-E-X-T, Consulting Services. So it's Dick at nextconsultingservices.com. That would be the organizational total picture because it's more than me recommending them. You could go the front door with them. And Mark Jeverett is the primary in that. And you could find him on the www Next Consulting Services the same way. So you can find out a lot and see some of his good work. I still am who I am as far as ministry management. And so that I just primarily go by my email, which is rre.epps, rre.epps @gmail.com.
Okay.
And that would be more of a let's talk and figure out if you might want to associate with us through next, or how can I help you? So those are.
So you've intrigued me with this life job description, determining your vocation. I can't tell you how many books have been written that I've read on how do you decide what to do, where is God leading you, how do you make these choices, how do you write a life job description, how do you get into it?
Yeah. Um, I'll keep coming back to the pyramid because it's one of the faces of the pyramid. Now we're talking about people, okay? So let's assume that we're talking about this, and you're saying what you just said to me. I just had this conversation yesterday, as a matter of fact, with a friend, and we chatted about this for quite a while. I had a lot more to talk about, but it kept going back to exactly what you're talking about. How do we choose to do and know what to do with our life? So on an organizational basis, it comes to the face called people. And you start with people with who you are and the role that you fill. So you're filling a key role in your system, and that's where you have to start. And so the question is, where's your heart? How are you going to determine that? And how are you going to identify that? And basically, it starts with a life purpose and who you are and why do you exist. If you haven't, there's a lot of books written about it. If you haven't dealt with that as an individual, it's worthy of time. It's worthy of your effort. There's different ways to talk about that. What would you like written on your tombstone, on your headstone? You know, what are the three words? I can't remember who it was, but somebody who was great into teaching literacy. And his headstone was, he taught the world to read. Got it? Got it. You know, so what is it you do? For me, it's I want to help those who are committed to helping others. That's what I do. Okay. When I get that, then it guides me a lot. So then into that it says, okay, so now how am I going to do that? And I did it when I was vocationally driven by choosing the job that I wanted, but how do you choose that job? And this comes now to the discussion of abilities. How are you wired? We're all different. You and I are really different, Ron. You know, we know that from working together, and that's wonderful. That's beautiful. You know, it's a beautiful thing to understand. But don't put you in my job or me in your job because of who we are. So abilities is a huge thing. Each of the faces of the pyramid on the people side, I have a mentor, I have a person that's meant a lot to me in helping me think about this. The man in this area is called Dick Hagstrom. And you've met Dick. Dick is now retired. He's not doing the profiling as he did at once, but he did write a book, and it's Green is for Go, Dick Hagstrom. And it basically helps you identify that. And he uses the concept of a stoplight. So the stoplight is you got the red, yellow, and green. And you need to identify your greens so that you can put the pedal to the metal and go for it. Once you know your greens, and this is what drives you, it's what you enjoy doing and you do exceptionally well. And it's not something that you all of a sudden learn. It's what you've been doing since fourth grade. You know, there's books written about who you are. What you did in fourth grade is basically who you are today, you know, and because that sets who you are. So what do you really enjoy doing and do really well? Once you've identified that through a process, this book or some way, sitting down with somebody, then you need to be highly vested in that area. Dick always said you could do 40, 20, 40, 40% green, 20% yellow, 40% red. A yellow is, you can do it pretty well, but it's no fire in the belly. It doesn't turn you on. You can do it. A red is, I don't enjoy doing it. I don't do it very well. I do it last. I put it off. Ugh. You know, reds. Ugh. You know. So he said you have a fulfilling job with a 40, 20, 40. I contend that if you're at this stage of life, you know, older and, you know, looking like the guy yesterday, you know, you really should be going 60-20-20 at least. You'll always have your reds, you'll always have your yellows, but you should, as much as possible, go for your greens. So your abilities drive you. But as you get older and you understand that, now you say, I could do this or this or this, and they all three fit my abilities at a very high level. What drives you? Your values. Your values make the difference when you have matured to the point of understanding your abilities. What is a value? A value is the people, places, things that mean a lot to you. And when you're married, it's not by yourself. It's you and your wife. What are your values? And once you've sat down and really talked through your values, that will help direct you in your abilities in making the choice of what you do, because your values are valid and driving you. The third element of it, abilities, values, is goals. Sometimes you have to violate your abilities and values to fulfill a goal. Mine was higher education. It wasn't really my greens. It probably wasn't too much yellow, maybe some yellow. But anyway, I did it because it fulfilled what I wanted to do in my abilities and values. So
You're saying going for your PhD is what you're speaking of.
Yeah, whatever it is, going to school, you might say, well, I don't go to school. So why should I do that? Because it's a goal. So your goals sometimes override it. But the difference between us and those that don't have any hope is we know ultimately what our goal is to please God in all we do. And so basically that is the driving objective, and we fulfill that no matter what. And sometimes we violate our values and abilities in order to fulfill a short range goal.
You mentioned someone you spoke with yesterday, and I think as you couched your response, it was pretty much towards somebody your age or my age or older, that's got all their goals, they know what it is they're good at, and so on and so forth.
Their abilities.
But the same again, instruction, and I think of all the kids, especially the ones that had a really rotten end of their school year this year.
Right.
I think of them. I can't, it's hard to imagine being a young person, 18, just getting out of high school, 20, 25, just getting started, getting your feet on the ground, 30, 35. That same advice works for them, depending on where they're at.
Oh, yeah.
They have some of that stuff nailed down, some of it they won't. But that requires introspection. It requires setting and asking for direction, but certainly doing your own field study, doing your own study on yourself.
Exactly. And you need I call it an objectifier. Somebody that, we live in a subjective world. So you need somebody that's outside of yourself that will say, that's stupid. I wouldn't, what are you talking about? Sometimes it's a parent. Sometimes, we're talking about young people. I've got my grandsons now, or, one just graduated from Moody and, he's going through whatever and doing well. But if he doesn't have somebody that speaks truth and love into his life, and his parents do. So I'm not using him in a negative way, but it really is true that whoever's listening and taking this on and is thinking of somebody like what you're talking about, it usually needs to be an outside person, outside the home, outside the family, outside the ones that are supposed to be doing it. So somebody gives you an objective point of view that they don't have to do that, and yet they're speaking into your life with love. And we all have them. You look back on your life, those people are Hagstrom was one for me. Big deal. You need
it's popular, really popular in business circles and networking groups and all this other stuff to have a mind group. There's other names for it, and they're escaping me at the moment. But the first place I ever read of that, I think, was Napoleon Hill in his one of his books. Don't remember which one. It's having this group of people that you can go to. This person excels in this area, and you want to know more about that, or you want to build yourself. up in that
Yep.
area. It's being able to go to someone who will tell you the truth. That was
Yep.
the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Or they'll say, that has merit, but you've got to build on it this way. It's having that advisor, that trusted advisor.
Right. And sometimes sometimes you reach into your past to get it.
Mhm.
I I have some people that I haven't talked to in a long time, but along the way, I think I need to give him a call. I need a fix on the perspective that that person has given me in the past.
I'll tell you something you did for me that I don't know if you're aware of it or not. I don't know if I've told you before, but at the end of the year, you do an introspection. You take inventory.
Right.
You take inventory of goals, who you are, what you've done, where
Right.
you're at. I learned that from you. I found that extremely logical and extremely helpful, and I've done it
Good.
ever since.
Good. That's what, back to the life job description. That's why I wrote it, because I didn't have a review for, in a job, if you're in a position where you are never reviewed, that's not a compliment to you. You should uh, encourage that and want that. And if you're in a job without a job description, some people I've talked to said, well, I'm free because I don't have a job description. And, well, actually, everybody's job description is your job description now, because you haven't defined it. And so, it really is a liberating thing to have a good job description. And then to review that, so be called into your boss's office, even if they don't ask for it, even if they don't call you in, you say, I want to come in and review what my years look like to make sure that we're on the same track. So that was good. So when I no longer had that at Moody, that's why I wrote the life job description. So it starts off with, who do I answer to? Who am I working in concert with? My wife. What is the term of my service? A long time, the rest of my life. What is my life goal? To finish well in all areas of my life. So that's what I do. And so then I took the elements that I've already laid out, the balance concept of physical, mental, social, spiritual, and added to it financial, family, vocational, and recreational. What else do you do? Everything falls into those 8 categories pretty well. I do have the proverbial other as a line, because just in case, but basically those 8 areas have an ongoing reason I will continue to, like the financial one, I'll use that as an example, to be neither rich nor poor, but be financially responsible in all that I do. Okay, that doesn't, you don't measure that, but you know that that's the objective. Now, how do you, on my annual thing that you're talking about, I go away and I think, okay, what have I done in order to fulfill that in the last 12 months? And I write down, I've already done it, so I grade myself. Yeah, pretty good, not too good, yes, good, bad, basically. But 3 or 4 actions to fulfill that objective, just in financial. Okay, then as I sit there, I think, okay, what should I do to replace it, or how should I recommit to that? And then I do the same with the mental. So what's my mental objective? What's my spiritual objective? What's my family objective? So each of them have their category. And when I go through that, and I usually do it alone, nobody else can really speak this to you, but then I need my objectifier to lay it in front of it, because I don't have the boss. Usually let Pauline see it and say, okay, this is what I do. This is what I'm thinking. We're on track together. Yeah, okay, good. But then I have somebody else, maybe a Ron Bush, look at it and say, explain this. This doesn't make sense. How are you going to do that? If you did that, I'd think you're nuts, whatever. That's the objectifying side of it. And then what you've gotten to is now you're ready to commit. The other bumper sticker for me is commit to recommit. I always commit to recommit. I'm committed to recommit at some point to whatever I'm doing. Like my jobs with the ministries is 6 months. I re-up. I'm going to re-up with them so that they can tell me they want me to do something different, or they don't want me at all, or whatever. And I can tell them, I'm still in control. I can commit to recommit. And then 2 months in, COVID hits and it's not working the way we thought it would be. Now we're adjusting, but I'm not uncommitting. I'm still committed to getting it done. So the commit to recommit process. Younger days, I wanted to do it on a 5-year model. I've committed for the next 5 years. Then it became a couple of years. Then it became 1 year. Now it's 6 months.
Pretty soon,
it's hard.
Month to month.
It's hard.
Yeah.
Your objectives are ongoing, and they don't need a whole lot of re-upping. Just recommitted to them. I mean, just be committed to them. But your actions are the things you have to address. So
we're coming up towards the end.
Wow, this went fast.
Yeah. What thoughts? What haven't we talked about?
Okay, let me just run through the 3 faces of the pyramid. Okay, just because I've done it. Okay, the face of the pyramid. The elements within that are basically your leaders, your managers, and your staff. That makes up your team. Your leaders, your managers, and your staff. The key element is to have the round peg in the round hole. That's the key. Get the round peg in the round hole. If you got a round peg in a square hole, you know it without blinking. Just look at it. You know it. And it's by performance, it's by attitude, it's by all kinds of things. How do you solve that? Back to the process of green is for go, something like that. Help the person get 60 to 70% of their greens in their job. That's your job as far as your team. Now, the leader is that I'm assuming I'm talking to the leader, and that's where the called and committed aspect comes in. So you basically have to really be up. You have to be committed to what you're about before you can lead your managers and your staff. And then your managers and staff, you're putting the team together. It's a team. It's a good illustration because you don't want a pitcher playing shortstop. You basically want people playing their positions and playing them well. And I think of when you were a part of the team, the team at Moody, we couldn't have the wrong person in the wrong spot. It messes everything up. You'll lose the game, So the face of the pyramid is the people issue. The second face of it is the planning issue. And the key person there for me has been Bob Beal. If you're not familiar with him, you'll hear it. Master Planning. He's also kind of retired, but there's a good book called Master Planning by Bob Biel. And basically it's the key element there was a master planning arrow. And before then it was actually Covey. Begin with the end in view, the 7 habits. Very, very strong way of thinking about strategic planning. Then first things first and all the Covey stuff. But then Bob took it, and if you want more on him, just look him up. And he's got some really good tools, good books. And so master planning or strategic planning helps you. And basically what you have there's semantics, so people call different things, but it's your purpose, your objectives, and your goals. Purpose, objectives, and goals are the 3 faces on that side of the pyramid. If you haven't gotten to there, then you basically need to back up and make sure you know where you're going so the team can go with you. And then on the funding side, the key element there was a guy by the name of Ray Line. Ray just went to be in heaven about a month ago, and he had a ministry, an organization called Lifestyle Giving, and it's still out there. So Lifestyle Giving is good. But one day I asked him, I said, in the area of funding, is there a job description for a good development person? And he, on the proverbial table napkin, drew 5 circles. And he said, yeah, this is it. And so basically the 5 circles are, one is acquisition. Tell your story to as many people as possible. Number 2 is response. It's not just money, but any kind of response. Send me a book. I'd like to know more. Do whatever. So acquisition, response, then cultivation. Take where they are and help them move along with your organization. So those are the first 3 circles, and that usually makes up your operational funding. So your 3 sides of that face are operational, vision, and legacy. Those are the 3 sides of that. So that then, after those 3, you cultivate towards vision, leader, people that want to come alongside of you and share the vision. These are all about us, the first three. Now the next three are about the partnership. I can't do it without you, and you can't fulfill your heart's desire without me. So together, let's make something happen. So that aspect would be the fourth circle, which would be vision funding. And then the fifth is legacy. People don't take, there's no U-Haul on the back of the hearse. You know, basically everybody is either going to leave it or they have a plan for it. And if you haven't addressed that in what you're trying to accomplish with your mission, then you're leaving opportunity on the table. And so that's all these, I hit them real quick, hit and run. But basically, just like a good sermon has 3 points in a poem, you know, a good development plan, a good stewardship plan has a very systematic process in order to get it done. Some of it's science. The return on investment issue is very obvious. Just do the study, how much you spend in order to get a return on that investment. But it's also the fact that you have this element of how do you fit into the total organization and all these. So you can have a good plan. There's the science of it, and then there's the art of it, and then there's the business of it. So those are the things that now, if we've got to the diagnostic and we've said, okay, the people issue, we're getting taken care of, the planning, okay, we know what we're doing. Now we're ready to talk about money and how we're going to get this done. And so that's the process that you go through. And the more you get into it, the deeper you get. You know, that's your 9 to 5, whatever. That's your job. But you have to do your job based on the bigger view, or you'll be floundering because everybody has heard another story about how it should be done. Yeah, and so anyway, that's what I do.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I've enjoyed our time together. You kind of surprised me with the beard. You remind me of Francis Schaeffer.
Ah,
You're not moving to France, are you?
I figured I'd let it grow until the COVID thing was over. See.
Well, hopefully it won't get too much longer.
You remember, you know, if people listening may or may not know the whole Moody thing. D.L. Moody was a very big man, and he made a big difference in Chicago, and he had a long beard, and we used to not allow beards at Moody, you know, for employees. And so I used to say, well, I have a beard because it was a D.L. Moody look-alike contest. Then I started thinking about how portly he was, and I thought, I don't like that idea anymore. So.
Well, it's been fun catching up and, and talking about what you're doing, and may it increase and continue to grow and prosper. I want to thank Dick for being with us today, and I want to thank you for listening and watching. You've been listening to the Information Playground. We're broadcast on WVLP. That's WVLP.org if you're streaming, or it's 103.1 on the FM dial if you're in Valparaiso, Indiana. You can catch us there on Monday mornings at 8 a.m. and Friday afternoons at 1, or you can catch us on demand at any of the podcast platforms. Just look for the Information Playground. The definitive article or the definite article is important. The Information Playground. Apparently that's a popular name. And you can catch us there, or you can catch us on YouTube with the same channel name. You've been listening to Dick Epps, friend of mine, long time from Moody Bible Institute, now is doing his own business and working with Next Consulting. Tell me that name, that website again, Dick.
Next Consulting Services.
Thank you. .com, right?
Yes.
Not .org. So I'm Ron Bush with ronbushconsulting.com, and look us up on the web at that website, or email me, ron@ronbushconsulting.com. If you're interested in underwriting this program on WVLP, please check with Greg Kovich. He's a really nice guy. He's the station manager, and you can catch him info@wvlp.org. And if you're interested in subscribing to podcast or YouTube videos, please feel free to do that there as well. It's been a pleasure being with you today. I hope everyone stays safe and stays healthy. Thank you.